Village Council's Public Workshop. Today is March 27, 2019. The time is 7:30 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by law, but scheduled including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Knudsen? Here. Councilman Seaton?
Here.
Councilman Voigt?
Here.
Councilwoman Walsh? Here. Mayor Hache?
Here. Please stand for flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join us for a moment of silence in honor of the brave men and women serving the nation's armed forces and its first responders. Thank you. Okay, we'll start with public comments, not to exceed 3 minutes per person.
Rorick Halliday, 374 Evergreen Place. I was traveling for 3 weeks, so I gave a bit of a break, I think. The village website continues to be a joke. It is slow and poorly coded. I clicked to look up the agenda for tonight's meeting. I clicked Village Council Public Work Session under upcoming events. This took me after 5 slow seconds to a page titled Community Calendar, barely discernible because of a tiny print was a line for agenda among all sorts of extraneous information. Click that and it took me to the agenda in tiny light gray print on a dark tan background. The font was barely readable. Mr. Mayor, what is going on? I ask that you stiffen your spine, put your foot down, and direct the village manager to retain a professional firm that will work along with Dylan Hansen to do the site. We have been talking about this for months, if not years. This is silly. The village deserves better. The trees at the railroad stations were cut down on Sunday. What a shame. All but 2 were healthy. If you think I'm wrong, I challenge the village manager to bring her arborist to come to a council meeting to tell us otherwise. And if they were cut down because they were diseased, why keep the last 2 trees, excuse me, on the north end of the property? They're older and in worse shape than the trees that were cut down. The duck pond. I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm pleased to see progress with the county. Makes me think, since Michael Seaton is running for state assembly, and since there is speculation the powers that be have bigger plans for Ramon Hache, I suggest you call in your chips with the Bergen County Democratic machinery to make you both look good by working on other county assets in the village. The traffic lights, for instance, it's a joke. It's been years and years and years. It's a county problem, Guess what? Send the engineer down there with his sleeping bag and tell him not to come back until he gets it done. The bridge on the Hohokus Brook at the high school is another example. It looks like something out of the Rust Belt. Lastly, I have a message for the editorial board of the Ridgewood News, Bergen Record, and for Megan Grant. If you hear me,
Time's up.
tell you
Thank
that
you.
the Pulitzer Prize
Time is up.
is
Thank
hiding
you.
behind the dais.
Time is up, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Boyd Loving, 342 South Irving Street. In February of 2014, Mr. Jeffrey Ball, who I believe just walked into the room in the back, who is or was the president of the Federation of Dog Clubs of New Jersey, presented an award to the mayor at that time that made or established Ridgewood as a dog-friendly community. I know tonight you have an item on your discussion agenda to talk about dogs in village parks and perhaps change the ordinance concerning dogs in Village Park. I would like to encourage you at this time to permit or to discuss permitting leashed dogs in all village parks with the exception of Graydon Park. That is, leashed dogs would be permitted in all village parks with the exception of Graydon. At the time you do that, however, I would suggest that you establish a minimum fine if somebody has an unleashed dog or somebody who fails to pick up their dog waste. Right now, I've just read Article 105-16 of the Village Code, and there is no minimum fine established. There is a maximum fine established of $500, but no minimum fine. I would suggest that perhaps $250 is a good starting point for a minimum fine if somebody has an unleashed dog in a village park, and perhaps $50 if they have failed to pick up their dog waste. But I think there needs to be a minimum as opposed to somebody walking out the door and paying only $10 or so. The other thing I think you should do is to put up poop bags in the park. I've seen that there are some municipalities that give out bags. They have a stand with a sign and they replenish the bags on a regular basis. But again, we're supposed to be a dog-friendly community. We received such designation in 2014. I think it would serve us well if we did permit owners of dogs to have their dogs on a leash in any village park with the exception of Graydon. And I would encourage you to consider that this evening during your discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Jeffrey Ball from Pershing Avenue in Ridgewood. You heard a little description of me if you don't already know. I'm obviously president of New Jersey Federation of Dog Clubs. I'm an AKC delegate.
Sir, could you speak into the microphone, please?
I'm sorry. I'm a certified, New Jersey certified animal control officer, animal cruelty investigations. I have lengthy credentials. I'm a resident here. I've been involved. We do the free microchipping at every rabies clinic. I've discussed this same issue a couple times in the past with the town councils. I'm available here to assist. I have lengthy list of individuals, corporations, everything that's willing to assist, whether it be donations for waste products, establishing guidelines. So I'm thrilled. I apologize. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I could get into all percentages of homes that have the dogs and things like that. All I like to say is I'm here to assist you with all my resources if you consider such a thing. And I do support it tremendously. Okay?
So can we just, maybe you can share forward your email address or something with the contact information. So if we do want to call on you as a resource, that would be
Well, you came prepared.
very prepared. Great. Oh, look, everybody gets one. Yay.
Thank you.
Okay. Here we go.
Okay, and obviously, Dawn and Carol Tyler, Animal Control, I work closely with all them, so you can also speak to them.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll close public comments. We'll go into manager's report.
Okay, Ridgewood was just named a 2018 Healthy Town to Watch by the Mayor's Wellness Campaign. This acknowledges various initiatives recently started, including an annual wellness festival called Good Life Ridgewood in September that partnered with local businesses and organizations. Goals for 2018 were to promote a stigma-free place to live, provide health education to residents, and encourage physical activity. Ridgewood hosts a 12-week weight loss challenge, which just actually began last week again, which includes exercise classes, walking groups, a weekly support meeting, and health education seminars, along with one-on-one nutrition counseling and blood pressure screening, which is provided to all participants. In addition, Ridgewood offered mental health first aid training to teach residents how to identify and respond to signs of mental illness and substance abuse disorders as part of its stigma-free initiative. We have additional good news. which is the Ridgewood Recreation Department, has been selected as a recipient of the Fit and Strong Instructor Training Grant. This grant provides a special adult program promoting healthy aging in parks that combines physical activity with health education for those sedentary adults with lower extremity osteoarthritis and other chronic diseases. The program is just starting and runs for 12 weeks, meeting 2 times a week. The early bird registration for Graydon Pool will begin on April 1st and run through April 30th with a 10% discount on resident membership for adults and children. The sign-up is on our website. If you click on the scrolling picture of Graydon Pool, that'll take you to Community Pass to register. Day camp registration will also begin on April 1st for children entering grades 1 through 6. It offers a full camp program, including arts and crafts, organized games, daily swimming at Graydon Pool, and optional trips for older campers. Again, the registration is through Community Pass through the village website. As a correction to the 2019 calendar, Shred Day in Ridgewood will take place on Sunday, April 13th, not on April 6th, as stated in the calendar. It will take place at the Graydon Pool parking lot from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., rain or shine. Residents will be able to watch their documents on camera as they are securely shredded by information destruction systems, which will then be recycled by Atlantic Coast Fibers. Limit of 5 file-size boxes per vehicle. This is free to all Ridgewood residents and businesses. And please place items for shredding in a paper bag or a cardboard box. No plastic bags will be allowed. The village has received a grant from the NJDEP. It pays to plug in for $6,000 for an electric vehicle charging station to be placed in the municipal complex parking lot. Household hazardous waste collection, including fire extinguishers, fluorescent light bulbs, insecticides, kerosene, propane gas cylinders, will take place on Sunday, April 14th at Bergen Community College, which is located on Paramus Road in Paramus. It will take place from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., rain or shine. The Village of Ridgewood is celebrating its 125th anniversary in 2019, and the Village Council is looking for residents to serve on the 125th Anniversary Celebration Committee. There's still time to sign up to serve on this committee, and if you're interested, please either email or call Eileen Young at 201-670-5500, extension 206 in the Village Clerk's office, no later than this Friday, March 29th, to provide her with your contact information. A reminder again, the Board of Education election will be held on Tuesday, April 16th for a vote on the budget only. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. The Board of Education election in April 2020 will have a vote on both the candidates and the budget. David Feld, the founder and national director of Geese Peace, will be holding training sessions on Friday, March 29th from 3 to 5 p.m. and Saturday, March 30th from 10 a.m. to noon in the senior lounge on the ground floor of Village Hall to explain Geese Peace protocols. Pre-registration is required and more information can be found on the Village website. Anyone interested in assisting with Geese Peace should attend one of these training sessions. The estate card is a debit card which allows you to shop locally and earn a credit towards your property tax payment. This program is opening up to renters as well, providing credit towards utility bills. More information is located on the Village's website. As a reminder, please sign up for e-notices by clicking on the button on the Village website, sign up for alerts, which is at the bottom of the home page. That's it.
All right. Council reports. Councilman Seaton.
Thank you, Mayor. The Shade Tree Commission met yesterday downstairs in the garden room. As you can see, they wanted me to hand out these Arbor Day Foundation pamphlets, Trees for Better Streets. So I did that before the meeting. Everyone's got that. You could peruse it at your leisure. The discussion that was one of the more important discussions centered around the tree inventory. So there are some unspent funds for tree replacement from last year. And there was a decision from the committee, which I support, to reappropriate those funds to go out for a full tree inventory. That would help. Our own arborist said that he's a resident of Hawthorne. He's on the Shade Tree Commission there, and he explained how they didn't get any grant money until they got their tree inventory, and then once they got the tree inventory, they got grant money. And I believe it would be helpful for engineering, for Parks and Rec, and for our residents, because it could identify trees that would be more of a hazard and a priority to prune or take down in heavily traveled areas. Plus, it could open us up to grants of up to $300,000. So this year we saw how money could, sometimes you get money to plant trees in the budget and sometimes you don't. So this would go a long way in getting this tree inventory done so that we could apply for grants. So if their money is there, it's great, but if not, we could apply for grants and subsidize the efforts of our shade tree division. So that discussion should be coming up at some point in April, and that's about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Just a reminder to everyone to please visit visionridgewood.org, take the survey for the visioning process, or if you don't have access to a computer, by all means, request a hard copy from the village clerk's office, and we will send one out. We have a deadline of April 15th will be the cutoff date for all surveys to be wrapped up, and then we will start to put together our information packet and the results of the visioning survey. So please log on, visionridgewood.org. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilwoman Walsh?
Thank you, Mayor. So I just have the library to report on, and we had our meeting last evening, and Ashley Loria, the Youth Services Supervisor, did a presentation for us on the goings-on in the youth section of the library, and this little brochure is out for everybody to get a copy of, and it tells about all the different offerings that the library has. They talked about the reading marathon that just wrapped up, and they had 64% participation at the elementary level, which is up from prior years, which is really great because it seemed that there was some quieting of the program, and they really put a lot of effort into it and are really happy with the results. They have a lot of information on their website, so I just wanted to give everybody the website. It's Children's DEPT, the Children's Department, at ridgewoodlibrary.org, or you could go ridgewoodlibrary.org/children, and it gives you all the information that they have about the children's programs, what's coming up, different authors that they suggest. So it's really a great resource for anybody with children in the municipality. The other thing that the library talked about is they sponsor the trivia night once a month, and it's going to be Monday, April 1st. They hold it at Park West Tavern, and it's from 8 to 10 p.m., and it's a team of 6 people, and the theme for this Monday is going to be Game of Thrones. So if you can get a team of 6 people together and show up, they already have 60 people, so that's 10 teams so far signed up. It sounds like my council colleagues would be useless to me, so if anybody needs a 6th member, I am a Game of Thrones aficionado, but it sounds like a lot of fun, and they said that they usually get 60 to 90 people each month for these different trivia each month, so it sounds like a lot of fun, and the email to show interest is rplpubtrivia@gmail.com. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Boyd. Councilman Boyd. It's coming.
It's coming, okay. Thank you, Mayor. Citizen Safety Advisory Council met last Thursday evening. There was a number of residents who live along Oak Street who were concerned about the school bus route between West Glen and Robinson. There's 4 stops between West Glen and Robinson on Oak in the morning and afternoon. There was some major concerns about cars appearing to ignore the buses that are stopped with the lights on and the stop sign out on the bus. So they met because of that. They're also concerned about some of the cars actually going around that blocked area in the morning. They go down to Walnut Street to avoid the stop buses. It increases traffic on North Walnut. Some cars even speed down North Walnut to avoid the buses in the afternoon, which is another major concern. Sergeant Jay Chuck was at the meeting and stated they would look into this and report back to CSAC next month. So there is some concerns as it relates to most especially with the children going to school. North Walnut also met, the North Walnut contingent also met last Thursday evening, and they're seeking an update on the issues with cars speeding up and down between Linwood and Franklin. Sergeant Chuck said that they would report back on this to CSAC at the May meeting. NV5 was also at the meeting last Thursday night, and NV5, as you know, heads up the visioning process. And we had some good discussion related to most especially safety in the town, students getting to and from school, issues at the schools in the morning with a lot of the students walking is an issue, and obviously the importance of the safety of the students. We also discussed issues related to pedestrian safety in the Central Business District, considering the 4 large developments that are going to be built, and circulation of traffic in the CBD. So they're keenly aware of that. I'm sure they've probably been made aware of that by the other committees as well. Community Center Advisory Board is meeting tomorrow night. They are asking for an update on when the info will be posted onto the village website. I just want to make sure you're aware of that, Heather. They had asked a couple of times, I'm just curious as to when that might happen. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just have a few things to report. Last Wednesday, I attended the annual Fairlawn Ridgewood Weight Loss Challenge. This year was hosted at Fairlawn. Myself and the Fairlawn Mayor, Kurt Peluso, were there to do the introductions. Our very own Don Citrullo is one of the co-organizers of the event. It was a very well attended. We actually ran out of chairs for folks. It was great to see a lot of people who were motivated, whether for health reasons or just aesthetics, that made the commitment to accept the challenge. I myself accepted the challenge, so I'm going to be keeping track with folks. There were nutritionists on hand, including our very own Stacy Antine from Health Barn. There was also fitness experts on hand from various businesses in the area that were, again, donating their time to sit down with folks and talk about health and nutrition needs. There were 3 sort of main measurements taken. One was the weight, another blood pressure, and there was also a blood screening, all free, and it was a very wonderful event. On Saturday night, I had the honor of being the MC for the YMCA Gala at the Ridgewood Country Club. This year, they were honoring longtime YMCA supporter Tom Wells, and it was also a fundraiser for the transformation that the YMCA is about to launch. They're redoing the entire facility, and we were able to raise $150,000, so it was a very big night for the Y. Earlier today, I stopped by Jersey Mike's during the month of March, and the last Wednesday of March, customers are invited to come into restaurants and donate to a local charity partner. Jersey Mike's nationwide is donating $7.5 million today to charities. In particular, in terms of local charities, I know that they donated $1,000 of food to the Run for Hope Foundation that would go towards supporting underprivileged children. Earlier today, we had a meeting, village manager, the deputy mayor, village attorney, and myself. We met with representatives from EPIC. This is the series of bi-weekly meetings that we're going to have to go over the status of the construction of the garage. They have finally been able to pin down a timeline for us. Once we have it, it needed to be touched up a little bit. We're going to have a big model of it, big poster of it downstairs in the entrance to share with everyone, and we'll share those details with everyone here. But just to give you some brief points here, the existing lot will close, expected to close on the 25th of August. This is a couple of months later. We thought that the earliest it would be closing would be April, May. But apparently EPIC has had some troubles trying to source the precast concrete. Believe it or not, state of New Jersey has a lot of construction going on currently, and they were not able to lock in the precast until very recently. We're expecting, so that 825 will close. The lot will not be available until February, so it'll be 6 months that the lot will be out of commission essentially. Although the construction of itself is only about 5 weeks, 23 days. There's about 250 pieces that will be put into place. And the Hudson Street will have to close for 1 week during the last sequence of construction, just because it's the last part. There will be no more space on the site to hold the crane, so it would have to be on Hudson Street itself. But again, just happy that we finally have a timeline that's been now specified. The project is still within the original timeline that we had agreed to with Epic, and happy to see it moving forward. And that's it. Nothing else on my part.
So we will add that to our next agenda, and then maybe do it up on the screens,
Yes.
and all our council colleagues will have copies of that and be brought up to speed on the details of everything, right?
Right, as long as we get that updated
I
timeline
think
by
he
next
said he
week.
would try to get it to
Yeah.
us, so
Okay.
either way, you know.
As long as we get it, yes, we'll
Yeah.
do it, definitely.
Perfect. All right, moving on.
So our first item is discussion under parking, the Hudson Street parking lot. Hudson Street parking lot has 8 north-south rows of parking available. The first 3 rows currently is Shoppers Diners. That will remain the same. It's a 3-hour limit. That has 28 parking spaces. The 4th and 5th rows from South Broad Street are for Hudson Street parking lot permit holders only. This area contains 22 parking spaces. The 6th, 7th, and 8th rows eastward currently are just for Hudson Street parking permit holders only. However, these are going to be flex parking spaces. This area contains 26 parking spaces, so they're able to be used by Shoppers Diners or Hudson parking permit holders. So the ordinance that we're going to consider this evening for introduction outlines that. I know that the deputy mayor and I had a discussion this afternoon, and on the second page, it does indicate on Hudson Street from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, the flex spaces are dedicated for Shoppers Diners as well as Hudson Street parking permit holders. However, as we discussed it, we realized it should probably be 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. So as long as the council's in favor of that, that is the way that we'll amend it, and we'll introduce it as 8 p.m. this evening. It makes more sense because all the others coincide with the time frames of the meters, such as the next one on that second page is 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday, which is the timing of the meters. So the reason it was written as 3 p.m. is, if you recall, we're also going to consider on April 10th a ordinance to amend the parking in all the parking lots that after 3 p.m. That anyone can park in those lots without a permit. So, but 8 p.m. makes more sense, so that's how we'll introduce it unless anyone has any objections. So that's basically what I wanted to discuss about that. And then Mr. Rogers also created a resolution, which we're going to consider this evening, and that basically just says that we're going to temporarily suspend the enforcement of the, to allow parking for both Hudson lot parking permit holders with a hang tag, as well as Shoppers Diners. They would still have a 3-hour limit. They would still have to pay the meters for those Shoppers Diners until the adoption of amendment to the present parking ordinance. So those are the 2 items we're going to discuss, consider at this special public meeting. Are there any questions?
Yeah, how many permit,
Right now we have 11.
I'm sorry, say again?
11.
You have 11 permits for that lot that have
Correct,
been
right
purchased?
now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a total of 55 spots, so, there could be more. We did allocate 22 because, we're hopeful that when we get the ride-sharing agreement in place, that additional people will sign up for that. So that's why we allowed that additional 11. Again, the lot looks like it's going to close at the end of August. So, if by chance it changes and we don't get any additional people, perhaps we'll open up that row as well to Shoppers Diners. So.
So Heather, I just have a question.
Sure.
So we've only sold 11.
Correct.
And you're allowing 11, we're assuming that there could possibly be
An 11
more
more.
sold.
Correct.
But then we're still allowing for them in the 26
Correct.
spot as
Correct.
well.
Right. Right now, we allow them in all those spots, all 55 spots. So honestly, it's just to allow it in case we do get additional people to sign up. Again, once that ride sharing is in place. Many people didn't want to commit to parking just at Hudson Street because of the fact they were unsure of what that ride sharing agreement was going to be.
Right.
And so once that's in place, which may be in May, they may decide, for the next 3 months, I do want to participate in this rideshare program and park in Hudson Street for the next 3 months, and then participate for the rest of the year with the rideshare.
Right, but if they don't, that's just going to be, we keep talking about trying to figure ways to change the revenue.
Well, that's why Shoppers Diners as well,
That's why shoppers.
and as well, it's a flex spot.
So why don't we just leave it and just keep the 22? I mean, if there are only 11 people,
Well, it's either way though, because it's first come, first serve. It doesn't matter. If there aren't Hudson Street parking permit holders who are gonna fill up those 28 spaces, those additional 28, then it'll be filled with Shoppers Diners.
no, I know, but the 11 spots are going to be...
You're saying the 11 that are,
Yeah, because
that are
you've only sold
additional?
11. There's
The
22
reason
spots, the
being
11 are gonna
that
remain
they
vacant.
paid a premium to park in Hudson, and so the feeling was to allow them to park the closest to Broad Street, because of the fact that they paid that premium hang tag price in order to park in Hudson lot.
No, I get that, but what I'm saying is, lots of people have observed, and I was over there today, that for whatever reason, even the people that bought it, they're not seeing even those 11 people parking there, so the lot is just sitting, so what, I mean, why don't we just say the 6th, 7th, and 8th rows, I mean, just...
I mean,
can I-
that's up to the
anybody.
council, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, can I actually, I'm going to jump onto that because actually Bernadette's right. Because if we allocate those spaces either or, and the other spaces, the 22 we've isolated as hang tags only.
Right.
Well, if those 22 people say, well, I can park here or I can park there, they might actually consume the spaces, occupy the spaces that were intended to be open up completely. So if we've only sold the 22, we reserve an extra 11, and then we allow the balance to be open up. So we should remove the either or, so that then we've actually designated those strictly for Shoppers Diners, and we don't have that chance that somebody,
Okay, and if
instead of
we get-
parking here, parking there.
If we get more than 11 between now and
No, but what we're
August,
saying is,
what then?
if somebody, so let's say I have a permit, I pull in, and I can park in the flex, and
Right.
I just,
Park in the
don't pay
flex.
attention, park in the flex. So my spot in the 22
I understand.
sits vacant, nobody can,
She's now taking up 2 spaces.
yeah, she's taking 2 spaces.
I
yeah.
get it.
right.
So how do you want to amend it?
So let's amend it like this. Look back to Bernadette's point, go on the line of the flex. And where it states on, okay, so let's just go through this, Bernadette.
Yeah, 6th, 7th, and 8th rows. each-
So you want to just make it Shoppers Diners? You don't want to allow Hudson Street?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you should just make it, because it doesn't seem that,
Okay, and then if it exceeds 22, then what? We'll
Okay.
deal with it at the time?
So it's on the next part, right?
there's, so essentially there are 11 more permits
Right,
out there.
correct,
The first
correct.
11 people get them.
No, but you can
That's it,
still keep the
simple.
20, you can keep
Then
the,
we're going to have a rideshare program for just 22 people, right? That's...
Essentially, right.
Right, okay.
or actually only 11 if that's all you.
Or just
so,
11, right,
If that's all you
possibly just
said.
11, right.
So wait, where is that line now? Because,
It's on the second page.
I think it would make sense to say... The other spots are for shoppers and diners after all day, 3-hour limits, and Hudson Street holders. Can we mark the stems of the 11 spots?
That's
That
what
would
we're doing.
say just
We are
Hudson Street
doing.
only?
Yeah, the 22
Right.
spots, the
So
22
that's it. I
spots.
mean, then you know that if you're a Hudson Street pass holder, you
Yeah.
paid a premium for it.
Correct.
You're always going to have a spot.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like a reserved spot.
Right.
so on page 2, where we have
We'll
9
just take
AM
Shepherd's Diners.
to 8 PM, Monday through Friday, we can take out flex spaces and just say dedicated shopper diner.
Okay.
And then, right?
Yep.
And then on 10 to 6, we can take out flex spaces again. Is this good, Bernadette? And then
Yeah.
dedicated for shoppers diners, and then we're going to take out the...
We actually, on Saturday, we let all permit holders park in any parking lot on Saturday.
Yeah.
So then we could just take that as well as Hudson Street parking permit holders, so we just take that out then, as long as it's a dual purpose. So
Right,
we just
right.
take out flex and flex, as well as Hudson Street parking permit
Okay.
holders. So then we're as amended,
Hudson Street from Saturday.
on Saturday and Monday through Friday, it's 9
Got
to
it.
8.
So basically, it's going to say 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Friday, dedicated for shoppers and diners, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday, dedicated for shoppers and
Right, so
Where
diners.
do we designate those 11 spots for those who have
Here,
purchased?
that's
It'll be
here on
22 spots.
on the
22
first
spots.
page.
22 spots.
So right
Back on the
here,
first page.
you see there's 22.
Right.
I feel like I did that just now.
But I thought it was an objection to having 22 when there's only 11. Everybody's okay with the 22?
Yeah, I think we're okay with that.
Yeah,
Hey,
That way, if we sell more passes, you know, we don't have to go back and change anything, we don't have to do
I
this.
thought it was an objection
Just
to
be,
that.
no, but because remember that at 3 PM, according to us,
That's right.
they all become flex. So at 3 PM, the other 11 spaces go back into general inventory for anyone to
Right.
use. So we're kind of covering our bases that if we sell additional parking passes, we're
They'd be
covered.
full.
Then they'll be full, and then we don't have to worry. But
Then you
if
wouldn't have to worry
not, then
about
we
it.
just lose those couple of hours and 11 spaces revenue, but then they kick back in. Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Heather, the Hudson Street lot is in tremendous disrepair. I mean,
It
it
is
looks
bad.
absolutely horrible. I actually parked the other day in a ditch on Hudson Street lot. Can we do something? I don't know, I know we don't need, I know we don't need to, we shouldn't spend a lot of money, but can we
We
at
can
least?
patch in the potholes, I know there are big potholes there.
Yeah, it
can
needs
do
to,
that.
it needs to look better.
We can do
It
that.
looks like it, you know, it looks a mess.
Yeah, I agree. It was a mess on Sunday. It was a disaster.
So can we just make it look at least halfway decent? So
Yes,
that
we
people
can do
park
that.
there?
Yeah, I had to drive my car into a crater when I parked it there last time I
It
used the
really
lot.
seems bad, yeah. So, but anyway, we're good. Okay, so
Thank
we're
you.
good with that. We're going to go forward.
Yeah,
and-
so we'll go forward with the special public meeting. Okay, so it will be amended, so you don't have to amend it on the floor. The introduced version will be what we just discussed,
Okay.
okay? Okay.
I make a motion to suspend the work session
Second?
And convene the special public meeting.
and convene a special
Thank you.
public meeting. I want to forget that.
Second?
All in favor? Knutson?
Aye. Oh,
Roll call, right?
Go ahead, Donna.
Roll call.
Go ahead,
Roll
Donna.
call.
roll call.
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Voight,
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Hache.
Yes. Village Council, special public meeting, March 27, 2019. Time is 8:07 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the record, and by submission to all persons entitled to the same, as provided by law, by schedule, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Knutson,
Here.
Councilman Seaton,
Here.
Councilman Voight,
Here.
Councilwoman Walsh.
Here.
Mayor Hache.
Here. I move the first reading of ordinance 3719.
Second.
Everybody all at once.
Knutson,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Voight,
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Hache.
Yes, so ordered. Will the clerk please read ordinance 3719 by title?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 265 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood, Vehicles and Traffic, at Section 265-29, parking meter zone designated.
I move that ordinance 3719 be adopted on first reading and that April 10, 2019 be fixed as the date for the hearing thereon.
Second.
Knutson,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Voight,
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Hache.
Yes.
If everyone is in favor of this temporary suspension, we could read it by title only. If you would, if you're not, then we'll read it in full.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everyone's in favor? Okay,
Favor.
so we can read it by title only.
19-102, temporarily suspend enforcement of Hudson Street parking permit requirement, Hudson Street parking lot. Motion?
Second.
Knutson,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Voight,
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Hache.
Yes. Motion to adjourn special public meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
No, second.
Knutson,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Voight?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
Hache.
Yes.
Okay. So our first discussion item on the agenda after the special public meeting is under Ridgewood Water, is to award a contract for per and polyfluoroalkyl laboratory analysis services. So bid proposals were accepted, 2 bid specifications were picked up, and 2 were received. One was a total of $91,000, and the other one was $101,000. Ridgewood Water is required to test all points of entry into the water system for the presence of PFAS. A total of 40 analytes will be tested in each sample, and the results utilized as development treatment strategies for the removal of the contaminants found. The recommendation is to award to the lowest responsible bidder, which is SGS North America of Rutherford, New Jersey, for an amount not to exceed $91,000. This is in the 2019 water utility budget. The next item is under budget. The first is furnishing and delivering unleaded gasoline. We purchase fuel off of the New Jersey state contract for our vehicles. So this is to award a contract to, or confirm the contract with a state contract vendor, which is Allied Oil, a division of Griffith Allied Trucking of Hillsborough, New Jersey. It's because it exceeds $17,500. The next item is restoring a concrete wall and drainage ditch on Hillcrest Road. There's been a long-term infrastructure issue. There's a concrete wall and drainage ditch on Hillcrest Road near 53 West Glen Avenue. We solicited quotes from 3 local contractors. The lowest quote was from Conquest Construction, Inc. at $29,250 of Westwood, New Jersey. It comes from our capital account. The next item is a train station coffee concession. This goes out for proposal every 3 years or so. There were 2 plan holders eligible to bid, and we received 1 bid. The highest bid received was from B Power LLC, doing business as Flows Market, with a quote of $28,800 for the 3 years of the concession. There's an additional 2 years of the concession after the first 3 years have been completed if we wish to exercise that option. The sole bidder has actually been operating the coffee bar successfully for the past several years. And so they are paying us that amount. The next work is emergency work at the Andover Pump Station Water Pollution Control Facility. The pump station experienced a failure of its 2 pumps. Both pumps need to be replaced. Pumping Services, Inc. of Middlesex, New Jersey, can provide the type of pumps we need. It's through the Passaic Valley Sewerage Commission Cooperative Pricing System. The cost for the 2 pumps is approximately $49,684.10. It's due to an emergency due to the loss of 1 pump and the poor condition of the 2nd pump. Pumping Services is also our vendor for the emergency bypass pumping system we are presently installing at the pumping station. The next item is the emergency work at Heights Road collapsed sewer. We recently awarded a contract to North American Pipeline Services out of Freehold, New Jersey, for some pipelining work for Village and the Ridgewood Water Company. Last week, on Heights Road, a portion of Heights Road, there was approximately a 4-foot wide hole in the center of recently resurfaced street down to the inlet of the stormwater conveyance pipe. The pipe is 30-inch diameter, aluminum corrugated metal pipe, which was heavily oxidized, and the oxidization of the pipe led it to fail and cause a collapse. At this point, the village can either excavate the old pipe and replace it or line it. To excavate and replace the pipe would be a large-scale project. Lining would be less intrusive and destructive to the street. The village engineer is recommending further investigation to line the pipe. To line the pipe, he's recommending a change order to North American Pipeline Services. The first task would be to clean and televise the existing pipe to ensure it can be lined. If it can be lined, a liner to create a new pipe inside of the existing pipe would cost $145 per linear foot. The total for the change order would be $69,650. He's also, before the pipe can be cleaned, this collapse now needs to be made into a manhole. He's soliciting prices from 2 local contractors to install a manhole. The manhole will also be used for the insertion of the liner if the hose pipe is satisfactory for lining. So this is a change order to the existing contract. The next item is award state contract various parts and services for fleet services. This is, again, awarding a contract under state contract to Kirk's Tire and Auto of Bergenfield, New Jersey, and it's not to exceed $55,000 for the year. The next one is for bituminous concrete. The village's purchases bituminous concrete plus various road repair materials through the Bergen County Cooperative Purchasing Program. The contract holder is Brainstone Industries of Haledon, New Jersey, and this is Ridgewood Water in the amount of $40,000. And I'm just looking to see if there's additional. That's what I see. Okay. The next item is transfer of authority for the Construction Board of Appeals to Bergen County. I know Tom Yaka is here. I'll have him come up and speak about this.
Bless you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm here tonight to request that we formally transfer the authority from our local board to the county board. Currently, we are one of only 3 municipalities in Bergen County that do not utilize the Bergen County Construction Board of Appeals, and the state statute under the Uniform Construction Code automatically defaults any cases that would be heard here in Ridgewood to the county. So I think what we're looking at is potentially just a resolution to formally send all of our cases, if we have any, to the County Board of Appeals.
How many cases have we had over the years? Because this came up a couple of years ago, and yeah, and we, you know, it struck me because I guess we didn't do it back then. There was a lot of speculation that maybe there would be more cases coming up. So how many do we have?
Since the last time this was brought forth to the council, we've had 0. However, with the complexity of some of the projects underway now, it's potentially we could hear some cases, and I'd rather be prepared than have to juggle the schedule a little bit to get them down to the county.
Okay.
Most of what we do, I mean, in the event that there is a disagreement, whether it be in the interpretation of the code or the enforcement process, we have a pretty good track record of resolving those matters in-house. But in the event something cannot be resolved amicably at this level, we'd obviously need an appeal process for the applicant.
I mean, if it defaults to the county, I mean, I don't see a need for, I'm okay with it.
Is there, for the appeal process, I mean, is it fairly lengthy at the county versus if it was done here? I mean, I certainly don't want to have people complaining about the fact that, you know, they go to the county and it takes them a year.
Well, the county has a fixed schedule. They meet every third Thursday of the month, and currently, I spoke to their secretary today, and they're experiencing probably about a 6 to 8 week backlog because they have about 15 cases in the queue right now. They try to handle at least 5 every meeting, but it would. There's more structure at the county level because previously what we'd have to do is we'd have to gather our members, and it was very difficult to get them all at the same place at the same time. Right. I think this fixed meeting schedule would benefit any applicant.
Okay, so most of the delay would be 2 months? I mean, if they, a 2-month hearing, it would take them it would be 2 months before they would be able to be heard?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. I can speak to it a little bit. I think in the time that I've been the village attorney, I don't think I've defended any matters before the Village Construction Board of Appeals. The upside was always the autonomy of it. The downside was the delay. And frankly, if you can't work things out with the building department in terms of making the proper adjustments or doing things that would be substantially acceptable to the village, then you're going to face a situation where you've got to wait before you can do anything. it may be an incentive to help people decide to work together with the village, but in that regard, you know, when we came through this the last time, and I forget how long ago it was.
Last year.
We don't have the mechanism, don't have the history to really put everything together. It'd probably take you a month before you could get everyone together anyway. Yeah. So it's, there's some positives to it that I think possibly outweigh some of the detriments, but, you know, we have to take Tom's, you know, position and his opinion with regard to it.
Just finding members to fill our board, we need 5 plus 5 alternates. It's a bit of a challenge because we're trying to find people that are local that don't have any affiliation with Ridgewood, whether they maybe have worked here in the past or they're contractors or architects. It's kind of difficult. And I think that's what led to the gap that we're experiencing now with not actually having a Board of Appeals in Ridgewood.
Okay, I mean, I'm good. Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
So the next one is the North Jersey Masters would like to donate $1,000 to the community center because every year volunteers made up of Parks and Recreation staff and family members, as well as neighboring residents, host a water table on Fairfield Avenue for the runners of the 10K during the Ridgewood Run. So as a thank you, North Jersey Masters would like to donate this money to help fund programs as needed. So this is to accept that donation. They have no applications before any board. They really are just involved with running that Memorial Day run every year.
Everybody okay with that? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Next one is dogs in village parks. What we're doing is we're maintaining what we had in the past. They are prohibited from Citizens Park, Graydon Park, Pleasant Park, 20 Pond Park, Memorial Park, Van Ness Square, Bel Air Tennis Courts, and Veterans Memorial Field. The dog shall only be permitted on a leash, with a leash no longer than 6 feet, with an adequate collar, at Irene Habernickel Family Park, Shedler Park, Dunham Trail from Grove Street to Spring Avenue, Grove Park, Gypsy Pond Park, south of the Lakeview Compost Facility. I know Mr. Loving indicated that he'd like dogs in all of the parks. If you recall, the Parks and, the Field Committee, the addition, the amendments that we adopted earlier, probably late last fall, included the fact that there were not going to be dogs in these parks listed. Many of them have fields, and so at those fields, both the PRC board and also the Board of Education agreed that it was difficult to have the dogs at the fields. Apparently there's a new type of, I don't know if I want to call it a tradition, a new type of activity that happens where people take their dogs off the leash, they all corral together, and then they end up on the fields as the children are playing, and then they have to stop the play and remove the dogs from the fields. So that, you know, there's also a liability for the village if we allow people to bring their dogs and then they decide to take them off leash. So, you know, this is maintaining the status quo with the existing parks that don't allow dogs, but it's allowing dogs on leash at more parks than what we currently have. Because as Mr. Loving rightly pointed out, there are certain parks that were not named, and this way they are named.
Yeah, I remember the Fields Committee, the concerns were, from a safety standpoint, it was more of a health issue, not wanting dogs on athletic fields, which I can understand. So the concern was that, and obviously that the dogs be on a leash, because you don't want dogs running around loose, and if kids are running around, dogs sometimes are triggered and they want to chase and play. So those are the two concerns. I think that we can, you know, I mean, I see dogs in a lot of the parks that we named where they're prohibited all the time. So, I mean, we're not really enforcing the presence of dogs there. But I think that having a dog on a leash, it makes good sense in any of the parks. But I just think that we should be more consistent in terms of, do we allow them in the parks, you know, all or none? I think it's confusing, because if I attend a athletic event at Habernickel Park, and then I go watch another athletic event at Vets, and I took my dog to Habernickel, and now I don't know if it's allowed at Vets or not. I just think it's confusing. I think maybe we can put some of the parameters around what the concerns were from the PRC board and the Fields Committee in terms of health and having the dogs on the actual athletic field, which I get, but allow them just on a leash.
You know, I just want to ask Matt a question. So I've actually kind of really thought this through a lot, and if I had, or somebody had, I don't want to have, a seeing eye dog or an emotional support dog or any type of animal that's a service animal, if I had that animal and I needed it to walk through Van Ness Park, I would not be prohibited, would I? Would I be permitted to bring a service animal into any park?
Right now, the way that this ordinance is written, I don't believe that you would be allowed to do that.
So, and I recall I think it was last year, there was a program at Van Ness, and somebody had their dog that they were doing some presentation with the dog, and that dog was permitted, and I kind of felt a little like we were engaging in dog discrimination. So I actually think that other than the sports fields, I mean, obviously Citizens Park, that's, you know, too many sporting events going on there. Graded Park obviously would be out. But I don't see any reason why somebody, if the requirement is that the dog is on a leash and somebody's taking a walk downtown, and people go into parks all the time with their dogs, so our best bet is to say, yes, you can bring your dog to the park, it has to be on a leash, and allow people to kind of walk, and you know, people have animals, and sometimes, no, Diane, you can't.
It's not public comment, sorry. So even if it's Vets Field, where there's an athletic field.
No, Diane, you can't
Sorry,
do that,
please,
you have
can't.
to sit. Sit down, please sit down. Diane, you gotta sit down.
Please.
You must sit
Please
down.
sit down.
Sit down.
Chance to do the public comments at the end. Thank you. But even vets, so vets, for example, has athletic fields. Have the dogs be allowed on the track, for example, just
Yeah.
not on the field itself.
I agree. I think that if we can separate that out and say the dog's not allowed in the field, but it can be on the track, I think that's okay. People ride their bicycles around the track, they do all sorts of things, and it's just
I mean, you can work out exceptions, I think with some help from some wording from some other towns or areas. You could work out exceptions for animals that are service animals or dogs that are service dogs for different things, for different events. So, I mean, that can be worked on, but that's up to the council to decide.
So how many dog violations do we get per year? None? Or, I mean, and what are they? What are the dog violations?
I think it's difficult to enforce, because if someone has their dog off of a leash, how do you know who they are, where they live?
Yeah.
You know, so if someone reports it, unless the police officer's right there to stop it, you know, how is it enforced? It's difficult.
I used to run away
So
all the
we really don't get any dog violations per se.
Well,
Well, we have dog bites.
we have dog, I was just
Okay,
going to say,
yeah.
we have a lot,
Dog bite, well, how many of those
We
do
have
we
dog
get per year?
bites.
I would have
Dogs on
to
leashes,
find out from the
yeah.
health department.
Yeah, can we at least, I just want to find out, I mean, and where they occur, it'd be just nice to know, because if it's like at as Mayor Hache had said, if it's at a sports field and a dog ended up biting somebody, you know, and I'm not sure if that'd be an issue or not, probably would be. And I know you have a concern with Twinney Pond as it relates
well,
to
I
some
mean,
of the nesting.
I just have a concern because I know several of my neighbors have been bit. One of them was bit up at the duck pond. They were just walking on somebody came out of the dog park. Their dog lunged, they were on a leash, lunged, bit them, and then the dog and the person ran off. I was up at Habernickel, and somebody's dog was running all over the place, so I politely said, you need to put your dog on a leash, and, you know, had some choice words yelled at me. You know, so, you know, the challenge is, you have to be able to enforce the dogs on the leash, which I don't think anybody walking in town is going to have their dog off a leash, but I don't know. So I guess the concern is, and I think ADA automatically trumps anything. So if they have to have a service dog, it trumps no matter. I'm pretty sure ADA compliance says that would trump anything that we would put.
But those instances, like I think that if We have strict leash, strict enforcement, and I think for us, the other issue, and I think the gentleman said that they would assist in how to language that. I think the first question is, if we were does anybody have an objection to adding Memorial Park to say, yes, you can bring your dog on a leash and walk there? Because the truth of it is, just like we know that service animal would be permitted, then, when service animals are the behavior is there, but, then do we just say, you can bring your dog, but these are the rules?
Well, I mean, I think the other thing is, Van Ness to me is a park that a lot of people use. They sit on the grass. Although we could have the little bags for people to pick up, if they relieve themselves on the grass and people are sitting there, people let their babies run, I mean, that's the other challenge for Van Ness, being such a used park. Maybe the other, I mean, you obviously wouldn't have dogs on a tennis court. That just doesn't make sense to me. That's field with the track. I mean, that seems okay, but, once they, again, get on the fields, you have lacrosse people falling and, laying on the field, basically. And we already have the challenge with the geese, so I think just for, I'm sure the health department would have.
Heather, I'm just wondering if you just get some additional information on what's going on with dog bites and,
It might be helpful.
They're probably not a lot.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
I can get that. I think also, though, just keep in mind, we're going to have to amend that fields policy, and it's not just us, it's the Board of Ed who has to amend it too, because we already adopted it, saying that any sports fields, we're not going to allow dogs at all. So, because there were too many instances where these dogs were going on the fields, there were health concerns, there were liability concerns. So, we can't amend the ones we currently have with no dogs unless we get concurrence from the Board of Ed, right? Because that's all part of the fields policy, right?
On the sports field.
So this currently follows what the Board of Ed already has.
So right now, the top where they're prohibited is what we currently have. The bottom is adding additional parks that were not named previously and allowing them on leash. So we currently have all the prohibitions in the top part. The bottom part, we've added some, as pointed out by Mr. Loving.
Well, I would definitely be in favor of putting in an exemption for service animals. I'd also be in favor it makes perfect sense that dogs shouldn't be allowed in parks that are predominantly fields, like Citizens Park makes sense. I would add Maple Field in there. I didn't see that there, so I would add that because it's turf. The whole thing is a field. I would let dogs in Twinney Pond Park, because, I mean, if you look at Citizens Park, Graydon, Pleasant Park, Memorial Park at Van Ness Square doesn't have a field, but Bel Air Tennis Courts, Memorial Field, Maple Field, they're all made mainly, or if not all, sports activities that are done there. So, for consistency, if you're going to have dogs in, like Dunham Trail and more natural areas like that, like even the Habernackles, there's a small field there, but then there's the pond and there's that kind of natural area. So I would maybe allow people to walk through Twinney Pond with a dog. There's no sports or fields there. But,
So I'll just comment on Twinney. If everybody had their dog on the leash, it would be fine, but they always let their dog off the leash, and then they end up in the pond, and then somebody has to rescue them because it's like 2 feet of mud, and the dogs get stuck. And I mean, it's a safety concern because then a human has to go in and try and save the dog, and anybody that's been stuck in Twinney Pond ever, Chris Rudeshauser will probably back me up on this one.
But what you're suggesting, though, is that dogs are already in the park.
Oh, they're already in there.
Yeah, so they're already in there. So what
They
we're
let them off
doing
the
is
leash,
we're
yeah.
actually just memorializing that, we're saying that, yes, okay, your dog's already in the park. Let's face it, everybody knows the dog's already in the park. What we're saying is that the dog can be in the park, and that's okay, but the dog must be on a leash. So the dogs are already there, so it seems to me if they're already there, they're there. People just are going to thumb their nose at rules and regulations, but if they're already there.
Well, they're already thumbing it because the signs are everywhere saying no dogs in the park.
Right, but then, so if you say that now, okay, you can bring your dog to the park, but your dog must be on the leash. So that kind of ups the ante, and then we increase if there's a violation. If they're already there, then they're there. So the question is, do we then say, well, there are rules if your dog would be in the park? I mean, does that make?
Well, they're there, and that's a violation right there. They shouldn't even be there, because right
Yeah,
now,
they're
we
there
don't
every
allow
day.
them at all.
They're there every day.
Because it's
So-
because it's essentially
not being
unenforceable.
enforced,
It's just
right.
unenforceable.
right.
So, look, somebody's dog runs away, there's deer in the park, there's fox in the park, I think there's coyotes in the park, there's animals. Their animals are in the park. So in this instance, we would say, okay, so you have all this other wildlife, so your dog can be in the park, but your dog needs to be on a leash. If they're already not following the rules, and that's unenforceable, maybe just seeing a sign that says, your dog must be on a leash, a 6-foot leash, no more, and then we begin to start to look at enforcement, then maybe that's an approach. I don't know. It's my 2 cents.
I mean, it's your decision, but I can bring back more information, and we'll discuss it again, possibly next week, or if not, at the end of April. But we will discuss it again, and again, I think we need to look back at that fields policy and see exactly what it says, and I'll bring that back as well.
Okay.
Okay? So the next item is police fees. So various police fees, the police chief has asked to be increased. So one is for reproduction of any motor vehicle accident report on forms required by the New Jersey Division of Motor Vehicles when received any other way than in person. There'll be a $5 flat fee plus a charge per page for 8.5 by 11, 5 cents, and 11 by 14, 7 cents, plus mailing costs for that. Photographs on CD for Discovery per CD and DVDs for Discovery per DVD have actually been reduced from $10 to $1. The next one is, the change was reproduction of any police or fire reports Discovery when requested to be mailed or sent electronically. Again, there will be a $5 flat fee plus a price per page of 5 cents for a letter size or 7 cents for a legal size, plus any mailing cost. But again, if it's sent electronically, mailed or sent electronically. So, and then fingerprinting is now $40, which was an increase from $20. And then a good conduct letter is a new charge, and that would be a $10 fee.
Nobody wants a bank escort anymore?
I guess not. Yeah, bank escort we got rid of. I guess we don't get called for that very often.
Now we get a call for good conduct.
I'm sorry, say again?
But now we get a call for good conduct.
Yes,
Okay.
we get those letters. Well, I think before we did it free of charge, and now I think they're getting quite a few requests, so they wanted to, you know, for their time in preparing them. Everyone's okay with those changes? Okay. So I'll have Chris Redesauser come up for this last item. This is under operations. It's relocation of the stop signs at Hope and Gilbert. There was a request to relocate the stop signs at Hope and Gilbert. Hope Street approaches to the Gilbert Street approaches. Various village departments undertook various tasks. The police department conducted a speed study. The village engineer conducted a field examination of the intersection. The police department also provided motor vehicle accident history, and the village engineer also provided a pictorial copy explaining the village's physical or visual obstructions. I'll have Mr. Redesauser go into more explanation.
Did we reach out to the residents?
I did.
last time?
I sent an email to the...
Any response back from them? Do you know if they're here tonight?
I don't know. Is anyone here
yes,
from Hope and
okay.
Gilbert?
All right,
Yes,
good.
Yes, thank you.
I just want to ask one quick question. Is this intersection that we changed a yield to stop a couple of ways back?
Yes, you're absolutely
All right,
correct,
good.
Deputy
All right.
Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Deputy Mayor is correct. This is an intersection that previously had yield signs on the approaches, and they were upgraded to stop signs in, I think, November 2017. Because we do have yield signs at some intersections in the community. When I notice those, I take a look at the traffic and see if it would be better to have a stop sign. Yield signs are a little they're not as definitive as a stop sign. Some people don't come to a full stop, and we have incidences. And actually, in this location, the accident history shows a couple accidents just before we upgraded to the stop signs.
Sorry, 1 second. Do you guys have a copy of this with you there?
Okay. Yeah, police department did a speed study. Their speed graphs and data is attached in the summary memo I prepared. They had a very low percentage above the speed limit, 3.9% for, let's see which direction that is. It's on Gilbert Street, near Hope Street. One direction was 3.9%, the other direction was 3.6%. For traffic above the limit. That's pretty darn good in terms of speeding. We have many other streets in the community that have much greater speeding problems. They even rate it as a low enforcement rating. When I was out there, I did see the traffic counter that the police department employs. I'm very familiar with it. If you're not familiar with it, it's very unobtrusive, does a very good job. And at this time, I don't see sufficient warrants to change the directions of the stop signs.
Could you just go through the number of accidents and also the field examination that you did?
Wait, I just have one question before
Sure.
you turn your page. When you go back to the first one of the speed enforcement evaluator, where you have the total percentage of enforceable violations, and you have your little, looks like okay. So where you have the posted speed limit is 25 miles per hour, and then there's an enforcement tolerance of 7 miles per hour, and then 33 miles per hour and up. The percentage above the limit is 3.9%. Was that above the posted speed limit or above the enforcement limit?
That I cannot say for certain. That would be a question best answered by Officer Torino, who prepared the study.
Okay. So I think that's an important question, because when I think if it's 3.9% above the enforcement limit, then that's people traveling over 33 miles per hour, and that's a pretty tiny little street. So if it's 3.9% over the speed limit, the posted limit, it seems not as relevant as if it's over the 33 miles per hour, the enforcement limit. So just a bit of clarification on that would be helpful. Okay.
Okay. Getting back to what Heather requested, when I went out to that location, I took a look at the intersection from several different directions. I was out there on February 26th. I took a number of photographs. There are, in the intersection or on the approaches to the intersection, a number of large bushes and shrubs and trees that could constrain sight angles for traffic. The current configuration of traffic control devices helps that situation. If we were to switch in, we may have to have some shrubbery removed to give better sight lines. The question of whether the shrubbery is in violation of the village's intersection sight angle, I looked at that, and some of those shrubs may predate the adoption of the physical or visual sight obstruction ordinance. I don't know, I haven't been able to confirm that yet. We have a bunch of accidents, the accident history from 2010 to 2019. Nothing after 2017. Before that, we had 2 accidents. Very few directly related to the intersection. There's a few isolated accidents in the general area. So relatively very few accidents in that area for an intersection.
So, Chris, the one accident is just repeated twice, but just going back 1 minute again to the shrubbery in the intersections. So, Matt, we do that like triangulation so that we have a clear visibility on corners. And I guess my question is, anybody could say their shrubs were planted in 1910 or, whenever, I don't know. So regardless of where the signage is, that visibility could be a bicyclist coming up the street, and that would prevent somebody in either direction from seeing someone. The closer they are to the the curb, the less the visibility with those shrubs, right? Because it's,
Well-
because you're within that triangulation.
A cyclist would have to treat the traffic control devices the same as a motorist. They'd have to stop at a stop sign.
Right, no, I understand that.
They should not blow the intersection.
Right. So, but I'm just saying, I mean, obviously, there's a benefit to having a clear, visible,
Sure, but we do have regulations, I think, in the village with regard to that sight distance, and Chris would know whether or not these meet that. The sight visibility on the corners from the stop sign.
Yeah, it's, I actually attached, in my summary memo, last page, is a sketch we have prepared in engineering for chapter 190-119E, and explain how a site obstruction, what a site obstruction is, and what areas the ordinance requires to be clear.
Yeah.
Again, this is where I said earlier, I'm not sure when this was adopted in relationship to the vegetation
Right,
that I
understood.
observed, because there was a couple big trees. They may have been there a long time beforehand.
Hey, Chris, on the speed enforcement evaluator, you have dates here, but what was the time frame when this was done? I mean, was it just like the whole day? What was it?
Well, the first one was done from Monday, the 18th, through Wednesday, the 20th. The unit is physically mounted, and it records data continuously.
Okay, so it was like 24 hours plus?
Yeah, 24 hours plus. And the second location was Friday, the 22nd of February, and run through Sunday, the 24th.
Okay. There seems to be, this is odd, a disconnect between what you found and what the neighbors are concerned about. They had, I guess, mentioned that there were several speeding incidences, and I think it was in the morning time, or?
Yeah, people just kind of
Right
rolling down the hill, yeah.
And I'm just wondering why there's such a disconnect.
That I can't explain. The police department had their controllers out for 2 full days roughly in each direction. They didn't really note anything, or they didn't note anything that warranted an enforcement effort. Yes, there might be an occasional car that exceeds the speed limit, but certainly not dozens of cars or more. That's why they wrote it up like they did. They presented that. They're certainly the better experts on the speed and enforcement.
Okay.
And Chris, if you could explain for us, because I think most people would say, well, you know what, let's not wait for something to happen. Let's just put a 4-way stop sign. What's the difficulty in placing a 4-way stop sign in an intersection? One of the key factors in any traffic control device is you have to establish the warrants. Those are the legal justifications for the implementation of the traffic control device. It does get quite critical, particularly when an unfortunate incident occurs. I personally have been disposed a number of times for incidences that have occurred at village intersections. One occasion was an accident at Van Deen and East Ridgewood Avenue. Ironically, it occurred before my employment in the village, but my title or my position still gets deposed, whether it's me personally or some other engineer. Another situation was a stop sign was knocked down and an accident occurred. We also had a deposition like that. So when a litigation situation occurs, you need to have the warrants and the documentation to justify the actions. Otherwise, I just give more work to Matt Rogers.
So wait a second, I don't understand it. So if we did it and something bad happened, that would be bad? I mean, in other words, if we put a 4-way stop sign and something bad happened, that would be...
We don't have the
bad thing for us?
justification for it right now.
I'm sorry, say again?
You don't have the justification for a 4-way stop sign. You don't have the warrants.
Okay, so again, I want to make sure I follow the logic. If we did put a 4-way stop sign there, okay, and something bad happened, that would be bad for us.
I think Matt could define bad better than I could.
Well, I think the argument...
Don't move anyone.
I'm not going to try and define bad for either of you guys. I think what Chris is alluding to is that if we put up a 4-way stop sign, and let's say somebody stops and somebody rear ends the party that's stopping, without justification for the stop sign, we certainly could be included in a lawsuit. Whether or not we have a liability is another question, but without justification for it, we could be included. I think that's what he's alluding to.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. Yeah.
There's also another element. All traffic regulations in the United States is covered by something called the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, MUTCD. It runs about 800 pages or so. They also have, and I highlighted the section, it says, yield or stop signs should not be used for speed control. That's a critical directive from them. So if the thought is a stop sign or an intersection control device is for speed control, you're going contrary or counter to MUTCD.
So what, you just put a speed limit sign? Is that?
Well, a speed is, you have limits to be posted,
Yeah.
and those are enforced by a police department's enforcement actions.
Do we have speed limit signs on that street?
Pardon?
Do we have speed limit signs on that street?
Possibly, I can double check, but the village-wide speed limit on any municipal street is 25 miles an hour. Nothing.
Can we put like a slow down sign, exclamation point, something to say, hey?
Slow down would be just slow ahead. It would be a yellow diamond, black lettering, standard colors.
You know, Chris, we kind of dealt with this over on the corner of Spring and Kenilworth, you and I, so we went through that whole manual there and discovered that you just can't put the four-way stop.
They're very difficult to cite. You need a lot of justification.
So I get it, but the one thing that we did, and we did it over in Spring, is we added the double-face stop signs, and that seems to be pretty effective. Do we have double-face there now?
No, we do not.
So can we just add, I mean, it seems to be a pretty effective mechanism to get people to visually from either side to see that, so maybe that's
That's an upgrade that doesn't require any action from the council in an official sense. I would just give the instructions to the Traffic and Signal Division, as we've done also at Spring and Kenilworth.
Yeah, so in your opinion, is that helpful?
That can be helpful, but there's not really a heck of a big problem there.
Right.
We can do that because that still stays within the frame of MUTCD.
So maybe that's at least one step we can take. And then,
And I'll work with Chris with regard to the site visuals on the corners anyway.
yeah, I think that's helpful. I think that's really important just to, I mean, that's always important. We have a lot of corners in town that are, you know, heavily planted and there's not a great deal of visibility. I don't know how shrubbery can be planted and then as it's growing becomes grandfathered into.
I agree. I don't know. Maybe Mr. Rogers can answer that. I don't think anything would be grandfathered in if it's obstructing the site.
Right, if it's obstructing, it's a public safety.
I think there has been some case law over the years with regard to municipalities trying to take homeowners to task with regard to that type of thing. And they do give credence to the longevity of the plantings or the obstruction and what goes on. So, but we can deal with it. We'll get some things there and measurements there and see what we can do. I mean, on the one visual from one corner, I think it's coming down Gilbert toward going in a easterly direction. The property is raised, the whole property is raised, and that prevents it, although there's some shrubs on top of that, but the property is raised above the height limitation right there, so you're not going to get them to tear that or move that down. So there's some things you can possibly do with some of the other ones, but we'll take a look at it. You could always undercut the spruce, and hopefully that doesn't, cause problems for anybody in the green team, but hopefully we can, make sure that probably might even help, so we'll see.
Safety first, Matt.
Safety first.
Safety first. Okay.
Were there any more questions?
No, thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would say actually sending a link to that page might be helpful, because I know everybody might want to read that.
MUTCD?
Yeah, it's online.
It's online, but it's 30 megabytes.
No, I don't know,
And it
but
takes,
maybe just sending.
takes a lot of time to download. at least
It was
ours.
actually kind of a fascinating read when I went through that, because I was like, really, you just can't go slap up the other stop sign? It's pretty, it's fascinating, so it's handy to have.
If you like, I can send everybody the link to the MUTCD.
Just bring a copy next time, that's all.
Pardon?
Just bring a copy next time.
No, they don't make copies anymore. It's all electronic.
Copies.
There are certain organizations that will print a copy and sell it, but the federal government only has it in the electronic format. Thank you very much. And we'll go back to public comments, not to exceed 5 minutes per person. Hi, Diane, sorry, it wasn't the right time
Diane
before.
Palacios, 342 North Vendine. I thought that,
Hold the microphone down so we hear you.
Diane Palacios, 342 North Vendine. I thought that you were going to vote on the dog amendment. I was watching it on television. I didn't, otherwise I would have been here earlier for the first public comment. But what I wanted to say is when I walk on the sidewalk, people are walking their dogs. Let's say I'm walking this way and people are walking in front of me. Many people don't walk their dogs so that it's safe. I've had dogs jump on me. So people are not controlling their dogs. So I think when they're on a leash, they don't control, many people don't, and I think you're probably aware of it. What I would suggest is have a place like Vets Field where people cannot bring their dogs, on the track around Vets Field, so that someone like me who likes to do a daily walk and not have to worry about any kind of blockage, object in front of me where I have to be careful, can take a free walk. Because, for example, people like me like to walk and then jog, walk a few steps, walk a little faster, and then jog, and do that around for health reasons, or do a mindful meditation walk. For these kind of things, which many people do, you don't want to worry about what's in front of you. So I think it's fair to have a place like Vets Field where no dog is allowed. Then I think that places where there are dirt paths, like Dunham's Trail, Pleasant Park, Twinnies, I think dogs should be allowed, and I think that's a great place for dogs because it's good for their feet. It's a soft place for the dog to walk or run, whereas any kind of concrete or asphalt isn't really optimum even for dogs. I'm an old dog owner. I don't own one right now, but my son brings one up from Virginia that I take care of for periods of time. And when I walk his dog, it's a big dog. It's a combination of German Shepherd Hound. I make sure that if a pedestrian is coming on the sidewalk, the dog is pushed to the side, which people don't do, as I started to say. So I strongly recommend you have one place like Vets Field where dogs are not allowed. And I would also recommend, I've seen people let their dogs run freely in places like Looning Park, sometimes behind Benjamin Franklin, and there's nothing more beautiful and inspiring and life-giving than to see a dog run. You feel like running yourself. I think it's natural, this connection with nature. I think there has to be places where dogs can run, not just a dog park, but a place like Looning where they're allowed to run. And many owners have their dogs controlled so they're not going to run past the Looning area, but I think they should have that too. Maybe it's too confusing to have too many rules. I don't know. It's sad for the dog. I also want to say that they've put this is a different topic, they've put a fence along Franklin Turnpike, all along behind the Airbrook, so you can't walk through that area to park and ride. But the problem is the fence is all the way through, and there used to be wildlife in the Airbrook area, like deer. I used to see them, baby deer eating in summer. Now they can't. It's very sad. They don't have any room. They used to go from Twinnies to that area, and then wherever they go, and all along 17, it's all being built up. So people say there's too much wildlife, but they don't have a place. It's very, very sad. It's actually heartbreaking. I actually think about it a lot because I live in that area. I don't know why that whole area is fenced. Do you know why? I mean, I've called Airbrook and they don't know if it's the county or if it's Ridgewood, but it's the wrong thing to do because of the wildlife. A third thing I want to say is that when I moved here in 1978, my neighbor was Dr. Robert Olson, who was the head of the science department in Ridgewood High School. He was composting then and concerned about plastic. He wouldn't get plastic bags, and he was concerned about styrofoam. Well, congratulations, you're over 40 years too late. I'm not really blaming you, but it's so sad. People laughed at him. He tried to promulgate the composting. He did it in his backyard. I tried it, it was too difficult, but I did not use the plastic. So you know what, the oceans are ruined. Good luck.
Thank you. Good evening.
This is in regards to the stop sign on Gilbert Street.
May I please have your name and address, please?
Sure, Lily at 329 Gilbert Street, Lily Farhang. I noticed that the analysis dates are February 18th through the 20th, which was President's Day holiday weekend. So no one was around, and most of the speeding that we've noticed is during school hours. Parents are rushing to get their children to high school, because there is a cut-through from the west side to the high school. Thank you.
Thank you.
The other one was the weekend. So I was hoping maybe in the future you guys can consider the dates that you're doing the analysis when it's not during a holiday.
Thank you.
Hi, Joseph Alvaro, 331 Gilbert Street. I was surprised that it was done on the weekend, and then the other one was done during a holiday. I don't know what to say about that. Secondly, I'm wondering if you can't put stop signs east and west, if you couldn't take the two stop signs you have now and move them on to Gilbert as opposed to Hope Street. Because right now you have a stop sign at Spring, and you have one at Hope, and then there's another one, I forget the street that it dead ends into.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
Right. So if you you'd only have from Spring to Cedar without a stop sign. Oh, I can hear myself booming through this
She
building.
can't hear you. It's, okay.
So why not just flip it the other way? And then you don't have to deal with getting another approval from the Bergen County, and you've actually solved the problem. Because like Lily said, it's when you did, I mean, I just watched a FedEx truck yesterday just race up the street in the middle of the day. Just lickety-split. I'm like, whoa. So it does happen, and I think when you did your analysis, your traffic analysis, I think you did it on days which were not optimum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Eugene Lorenzi. I came over here a year ago, and I gave a lot of pictures, 16 pictures, from my sidewalk broken down by some of the truck of Ridgewood cutting the tree and preparing for the resurfacing Osa Van Dien and doing the all four corners. As today, I never had any resolution. You know, I never heard from you, Mr. Mayor, and from the Deputy Mayor, Mr. Erlander over there, and so on. It seems that everything is forgotten and never really asking for one single thing. You know, I spent $900 and I want it to be replaced. Those $900. Because when I have my health, then I gotta take care. Okay? So then I don't have any money to give it to Ridgewood as a charity. And I think, you know, this is supposed to be resolved a year ago and even 2.5 years ago before the other different panels. I'm not executing to you specifically the reason, but, you know, every time is a promises for different other delegation from you. He said, it never got anything resolved. Line. Now, I want to know what is that you're going to do about it. I would like to have the picture back if you can't do anything.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Can you tell me what you're going to do?
This is public comment, sir, so you can state your comments and...
Because, you know, you should see the pictures. They should show you the picture, and you can see what I'm talking about. And I don't think I ever have any little single word from all of you. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
So, am I going to hear something from here on, or just you're going to say like this?
This is public comment, sir. Are you done with your comments?
I know I can. I want my picture back. If you can't do anything, I want my picture back.
Okay. Are you done with your comments, sir? Yes?
Yes, I'm finished.
Thank you.
Okay, so.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, Rorick Halaby, 374 Evergreen. One thing I'd like Donna to calibrate her timer. I time my talk, and it is in 2 minutes. I hadn't even finished, and the bell rang. And it might be a good idea to have a stopwatch with the lights that people can see. That's one. Not that I was paranoid about having my time cut short because of my friendly comments.
Sure.
This is one. Secondly, when are you going to do anything about the sound system? We keep on talking about it. Nothing happens. When will we get that? Now, I realize this is public comments. I'm not expecting an answer. But we need to have the sound system changed. Okay? A third point is the village engineer and I have locked horns in the past. I respect him, he's a good engineer. But I have never understood his position on four-way stop signs. I have no idea. He always comes up with some mumbo-jumbo about the rules say this, the rules say that. The one that we really need to have is Ridgewood Avenue and Broad, because people heading west, on Ridgewood Avenue, fly right through the intersection without slowing down. That's an accident waiting to happen. I sympathize with the people from Gilbert and Hope, and I take that intersection all the time, I always stop, because I'm always worried about children. Now my last thing, and which is the comment I was trying to make before I was interrupted, which is this message I have for the editorial board of the Ridgewood News and the Bergen Record, and for Megan Grant. I don't see her here today. Which is, if you hear me, I'm trying to emulate Mr. Trump. Russia, if you hear me, editorial board, if you hear me, there's a Pulitzer Prize waiting behind that dais. Ridgewood, with a proud tradition of good government over decades, is being driven to the ground by cynical, corrupt incompetence. Yes, there is a Pulitzer Prize. Just look for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello again.
Hello again. Good evening, Boyd Loving, 342 South Irving Street again. I just took a look at the yellow binder over there at the proposed revised ordinance for the dog situation, and again, we're missing parks. Ms. Palacio stood up and mentioned Looning Park. It's not on the list. Doesn't seem like a difficult job for me somebody to go out and get a list of all the parks that are in the community and make sure that they're either in column A, can have dog, or column B, can't have dog. So as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, there are some parks missing, and there are still some parks missing. So maybe when you discuss this again, we'll have it straight. The other thing I wanted to mention is I saw an article online yesterday regarding Hackensack University Medical Center. And the article that I saw indicated that the city of Hackensack has negotiated an agreement with Hackensack University Medical Center to pay a pilot of $4 million over the next 6 years. Which reminded me that I have never heard this council or any council that has preceded this discuss trying to negotiate a pilot with Valley. I'm beginning to think that that was part of the agreement with them moving out of town, that we would never ask them for a pilot. I hope that's not the case. As we know from some correspondence that I had with the village earlier this week, we are still providing services to the Valley Hospital. They're going to be here through the year 2022. They're not going away quickly. And then they will continue to own property in the municipality after that. I am boggled. I don't understand why, since the Supreme Court of the state of New Jersey indicated that it is okay to get money from some of these institutions, why we are getting no money for the property at 223 North Van Deen. I realize that the Valley Hospital Association is the largest taxpayer in Ridgewood because of other properties they own, but with respect to the property that sits there at 223 North Van Deen, we get nothing for that. No pilot, no property tax, nothing. I think it's about time that this council took some action and tried to negotiate some sort of deal so that we get some sort of money to cover all of the services that we are providing at that address. Again, Hackensack has negotiated a deal that they're getting $4 million over the next 6 years, plus they're going to collect property taxes on any new buildings that are being constructed by the University Medical Center within the city. So hopefully, I realize that some of these discussions, if not all of these discussions, would have to take place in closed session, but I hope that you're beginning to think about what we're going to do to try to collect some of the money that taxpayers are now footing the bill to provide services to that organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Ann Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I just wanted to add something to the discussion about the dogs. I feel really badly for the scenario that Councilwoman Walsh is describing of dogs running all over the place and dog bites at a particular park. As a longtime dog owner, I try to be a very responsible dog owner. As Ms. Palacios mentioned, you know, like when I'm walking up the street with my dog, I pull aside to avoid somebody else with a dog, because even though my dog's on a leash, you never know what the interaction's going to be. But I would not presume to advise what the police department would do, but maybe Ms. Walsh, I guess you must live near 20 Pond, maybe you might know when key times are that there's like a melee of dogs going on, and perhaps the police department might go over there once or twice and just, you know, get out their megaphone or something. I mean, I'm guessing it's probably on the weekends more so when people are not working. But I mean, I feel bad if irresponsible dog owners are going to cause a problem for all the many responsible dog owners. We all pay to have our dogs licensed. We all, you know, so we should have some rights. And so that would be one thought, is that maybe at some point the police department could check it out. I realize that you can't, you know, if it happens, there's a loose dog and there's nobody around, nothing can be done, but maybe you could arrange to have somebody around. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nobody else? Just want to address some of the questions that were posed during public comment at the end here. With regard to Grow Up and Hope, I think you bring up a good point. I didn't take note of the dates of the observations. I think it's a valid point. Neither the observation dates or the actual days. You mentioned there was weekends. I would certainly want to revisit that and look at it in a more appropriate time. I remember the concerns that were originally brought to us by you and your other neighbors was that the presence of children and children walking during school hours, but I didn't catch the dates on that. I think it's worth revisiting. The shifting of the stop signs again goes back to justification. I think there was justification in placing the stop signs on the other sides. We can't just flip it because again there isn't no justification for doing it. It's not as simple as just popping them up and putting them back in. Mr. De Lorenzi, whatever pictures you had submitted to us, if we still have them, I mean, we'll make every attempt to return them to you. I'm not sure what promises were made with regard to the situation that you mentioned on your property, but I would suggest that we have a follow-up conversation with the village manager as to the details, and if certainly any promises were made, we want to make sure that we fulfill them. But I'm not aware of what they were, but I would suggest that we have a discussion with the village manager. Public comments just for public comments. It's not for us to engage with the public, okay? Thank you. So we'll look to see if we have them, and then if we still do, we will return them to you. Thank you. There was a question regarding the sound system. I guess Mr. Hallaby has left, but again, Dylan Hansen has already met with a sound professional. They came in, sound engineer, looked at what was the layout of the room, looked at the height of the ceilings, looked at some of the things, the equipment that we had talked about bringing in, and he pretty much concurred with what Dylan had already assessed, and we're moving forward with that. Do we have any word on the timing, Heather?
I know that a purchase order has been given to the company, and I think it's going to be sometime at the end of April, just because it's scheduling. So that's what we're looking at, unless something changes, but that's what I was told.
Perfect, thank you. And then the other comment was regarding the Valley Hospital and the pilot program. I know there was a discussion with that preceded my stand on the council here, so I would defer to Matt Rogers for that.
If anybody wants to, I can describe what the Supreme Court decision was about. It's got nothing to do with Valley Hospital, because that issue pertained to Morristown General Hospital, which had some for-profit activities on its campus. The deal that Hackensack struck with HUMC, Hackensack University Medical Center, is about an expansion of the hospital and taking over new properties in there, and that's how they were able to work out a pilot in exchange for the zoning. And more than likely, Valley's going to be here till about 2024. 2022 is a pretty sharp, close window on it. We've looked at it before. It was tried long before I got here, and campus stays the same size. The relationship has stayed the same. There's no interest in negotiating from the other side. So, you know, things will change probably once they do move out. There may be an opportunity to discuss it then, but I'd certainly be more than willing to sit down and talk with anybody with regard to that, because it has been looked at and approached, and we do have tax appeals with regard to that property, the campus, to try and readjust the tax situation, but these haven't been called into trial yet, and we've got, I think, 3 years pending on it anyway. So.
Okay, thank you for that. And one last thing, I mean, I hate to address it because I just think it's ridiculous, but there were some accusations that somehow the governing body of the Village of Ridgewood is corrupt or incompetent, or, I mean, I'll take the incompetence if you disagree with what we're doing, but to certainly classify us as corrupt in any way, shape, or form, I think it's inappropriate, and I think it doesn't speak very highly of us in that capacity, and I'm really disappointed that kind of comment will come from a member of the public to us. Certainly there's no evidence of any corruption or any misdoings of anybody here, and I certainly believe that our ethics and integrity remain intact. And I just apologize for everybody here who had to be subject to that kind of nonsense. With that, I'll take a resolution to go into closed session.
Be it resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood that the Village Council meeting closed session on March 27, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. or soon thereafter, as the matter on the agenda can be reached, and that said closed session be held in the caucus room of the Ridgewood Village Hall, 131 North Maple Avenue, caucus room of Ridgewood Village Hall, 131 North Maple Avenue, Ridgewood, New Jersey. Be it further resolved that the matters to be discussed in closed session are limited to legal matters to include affordable housing and health barn, legal contract negotiation matters to include Green Acres diversion. These matters are allowable under NJSA 10:4-12 at sec. Be it further resolved that the minutes of this meeting shall be made available to the general public when such matters have been deemed completed by resolution of the Village Council. May I have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone object?